Hello there, and welcome to the London Food Network podcast. Today we're joined by Chen behind LeVeto Water, a company on a mission to revolutionize hydration with nature's purest mineral water sourced from deep beneath the untouched landscapes of California. With our focus on purity, natural alkalinity, and sustainable sourcing, LeVeto is redefining what it means to drink water that's truly alive. We'll be diving into how this remarkable brand was born, the science and story behind its unique mineral composition, and how they're helping consumers reconnect with the most essential elements of life, which is water. The episode is proudly brought to you by Embrace AI Consultancy, helping food and hospitality businesses streamline their marketing, lead generation, and operations using the power of automation and AI. So, without further ado, Jeremy, been looking forward to this one. Let's start with who you are and why water, and tell us what Levita is all about.
Yeah, good to talk to everybody here. Good to chat with you. I know this is a good time for you to connect a little less so on my side, but I'm always happy to have these kind of chats. I'm Jeremy. I come from a very big tech background. I've been in the tech space for over 10 years. And why water is a pretty broad question, but for me, it really boils down to one thing, which is elevating the first touch point of hospitality. And that's where the whole story begins. That's where the whole brand originates. Water is one of those things that almost every organization overlooks, from restaurants to hotels, to even wineries, right? Everyone asks, what kind of water do you have? What do you want? Oh, I'll have tap. Tap's fine, water's fine, whatever it may be. And I just really felt that there was this very untapped potential, untapped market almost, if you will, of why aren't people noticing water? Why aren't people caring about water? Is it because, we're taking it for granted? Is it because we have too many options? Why is there no elevated solution? And a lot of people, now at times will say, well, there's Fiji, there's Acapana, there's all these brands, but not really, right? If you think of the wine landscape, how many hundreds, thousands, millions of wines there are things from the top, and we're talking tens of thousands of dollars to the $2 chuck that you can get at the store. And here I'm wondering, why isn't water appreciated the same way? And that's how LeVeto began, to make water something that's worth noticing.
Interesting. And what's your background then? Why water? And is water the solution to a problem, or was how did you approach this exactly? Well, because you must have thought at some point to create a business, right? But was the business created off the back of a gap in the market, or was it created because you love water and you want to see it
Well, I
more on
think
the
it's,
menu, if you like, as a feature? Like, what's
yeah.
the science behind your thinking, and what made you actually launch the brand in the first place?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I'm a athletic individual. I've competed in sports and weightlifting my whole life. So obviously water is essential. Without water, we as humans, we all perish, right? And so it was less of finding a gap, but more just realizing that there is an area that people haven't cared about for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? Why has no one ever thought about the time from a guest sitting down at a restaurant to the time that they're being handed their first plate that they ordered? That entire time, it's just a bottle of water sitting in front of them, right? There's like no interaction. They just look around at the restaurant. Maybe a waiter asks, checks in how you're doing. Would you like some other drinks? But there's just this gap, in my opinion. I guess, yeah, maybe it is a gap that people aren't really picking up on, and especially in the sector that we focus, luxury and fine dining, we believe every single touch point should be elevated, and that's just a huge miss. And that's what we're here to solve.
And how do you resolve that? Because I mean, I had a brief kind of deep dive into Levita Water, and the kind of thing that sticks out to me most from a visual point of view is the enormous time you must have spent on sourcing the bottle, right? Because it's very unique. I've not seen anything like it before. It's the kind of thing you might buy from a premium store as an empty jug of some sort, right? So there
Yes.
must be a lot of effort that went into the bottle design and functionality. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I would love to show you our first, pilot pictures and concept art of the bottle from many, many years ago. But I'll save you the hassle and the funky drawings. It was quite a process. Everything from sourcing to designing, even iterating parts like the cap, which is a self-levitating patented feature. I worked with some of my peers. I've worked with physicists to collaborate and calibrate some of the fine tunings of the mechanism. So there's, without getting too much into it, there's a lot of detail that goes into even bottling a water, right? What sort of caps can work with a custom glass? How do we even get the glass that particular shape? How do we make it so that when it gets, transported across from our facility to our bottling facility to our warehouse, that the contaminants don't get into the water, right? There's so many issues here that you have to go and research and do your due diligence. And as someone who has absolutely no water background, I had to figure this all myself. It took about 2 years to really bring the product into fruition through all of the various sourcings, productions, and logistics to get it there.
Right. And I mean, it must have required a lot of funding. Did you self-fund or did you seek investments? Like, what's the structure in that respect?
Yeah, this is completely bootstrapped between me and my co-founder. Like I said, I just took all my tech funds and I just blasted it in and I said, let's make something new, let's make something exciting, and let's make something work.
Wow. So either you have an enormous confidence in your products or you've really done your due diligence, market research and kind of analysis on that, because that's a big step to take, especially if it's your own funds mostly. That's a huge step to take. You worked hard for that money and you've put it into essentially a venture that has no guarantees, right? So what was it that kind of gave you the confidence to go all in?
I think a lot of the confidence really just comes from me being myself. And I wouldn't call myself a big risk taker, but I believe in calculated risks. And being in tech, I was laid off 3 times. And there's something about the stability of not being able to decide what sort of future paths that you may want. And maybe a lot of entrepreneurs may say this, but there is, I believe, a very strong, I don't know the right word for this, maybe a drive, if you would, for an individual like myself to be able to do the things that he wants with the own effort that he puts in. And in this case, it's starting LeVeto, right? 10 years ago, I didn't know that I wanted to start a water company, but here I am, and it's the most fun I've ever had. It's the most rewarding work I've ever had. And it's also the work that's produced the most amount of learnings in my life.
Interesting. Yeah, do you know, I sort of obviously talked to a lot of entrepreneurs and founders, and I'm still trying to figure out what it is that makes people jump, because everybody down at the bar, pub, restaurant, dinner table, whatever. Everyone always has the best ideas, the best advice. Everyone always has the next best thing to make $1 million, right? But no one ever actually puts the necessary steps to make it happen. And it's not to say anything bad about people that don't, but it is interesting that it takes a certain kind of person to actually just execute, because oftentimes it's not necessarily the idea that's going to win. It's the actual steps that lead you to success. And that always starts with a leap of faith, right? To actually just put it to action. And particularly in the food and drink industry, which is such a difficult, competitive market and really very low margin. It doesn't matter if you're in the premium end or the low end, the margins are small. Because, of course, for the premium product, a lot more cost goes into creating that. So it doesn't mean that because you're charging more money, that necessarily you're making more of a margin.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The seafood business I run is all about premium, but our margins are very, very small. But that's just the way it is in the food and drink industry. And I think it requires an extra amount of passion, grit, maybe even borderline naivety. You got to be
Absolutely.
almost
Yes.
naive about it, because I think if you really knew what you were about to embark on and all the problems you're going to face along the way, most probably you wouldn't go with it, right? But it's this kind of like almost childlike playfulness that you just want to do it. You want to do it. You want to find out. You don't really want to work for other people anymore, and you're willing to put in the time and deal with the consequences, I guess. So I think that's a really interesting part of human beings and what differentiates one for the next.
Mm,
Still
yeah.
learning exactly what it is, but
That's a good point. Yeah, actually, I did consider a viewpoint like that too. I also wanted to add, and I'm sure you'll agree with this too, that we're also lucky enough to have this opportunity. I think a lot of people don't credit that it's not all up to you and it's not 100% your decision. There's always timing and luck and things like that.
of
And
course,
as someone who, is first generation and immigrated to America and went through the whole school system and everything, this not learning English until many, many years in. I'm grateful to have this opportunity. Whether it is self-provided to this particular point, I'm blessed, right? And so if I have this opportunity, I want to do very well at this opportunity, and I'm willing to go all in because I believe in myself more than I believe in someone else's company.
nice. Well, and to be honest, you just proved as well another very interesting point, because job security, right, was a thing that kept people from doing these kind of ventures, because people kind of often gravitate towards job security. But we're living through times now, particularly in the tech industry, where, like you said, you got laid off 3 times, right? And it's got nothing to do with your skills, your ability. It's just the fact that technology is accelerating at such a rate that there will be an enormous amount of risk now, I'd say, to pretty much most jobs on the market. Yeah, I think that balance between job security and venturing on your own, it's almost kind of like it will reach a plateau where the kind of risk is almost the same, I guess, isn't it? Or at least the gap between security and doing something for yourself is reducing. But also, like you say, we've never lived through time where the ability to set up your own business has been so, I don't want to say easy, but let's say accessible,
Mm,
particularly in the UK. I mean, in the UK, to set up a business, it takes 1 hour online to register your business. You know, if you're dealing with food and drink, again, it's one application form that you do digitally to register your business, and you can even start from home. You can actually get your home kitchen approved, so long as it meets the right standards.
interesting. Okay.
So the entry point, if you like, is actually so low and so accessible that almost anyone can start a food or drink business in particular. Now,
Mm,
particularly in things like farmers markets, we used to do a lot of farmers markets, and you saw a lot of innovation there with new concepts, and that's how they would start. They would start with just buying a gazebo, you know, and creating some sort of mobile kitchen to launch their products or idea and test it that way. And then, of course, those that did well would then progress on to production kitchens and factories, and it would go from there. But the entry point is very, very low. So there's a lot of opportunity, I think, for businesses to start.
I agree. Yeah.
Is that the same in the States? Did you find much resistance in terms of setting up your business? What were the biggest challenges for you when you first started out?
Yeah, I think setting up the business, like you said, is not really the difficult part. I don't know if we can set up my own kitchen here at my home to be a part of a business here. But I think the difficult part is just, right, you can go get an LLC, do your DBA, get a name, get a website, get all these things done for probably just a couple $1,000s and maybe just a few hours of your time. But getting something to actually become real. And real, I mean customers, brand, product. I think that's the hard part. Everybody can set something up and call it whatever they want. But getting to the point where you really can create a market or become part of a market, I think is the biggest challenge.
And how did you resolve that then? What was your kind of strategy for growth and lead gen and closing some deals? Did you have a set strategy in the beginning, and how has that changed over time?
Well, I don't know if the strategy was set in the beginning. A lot of it is very, hands and boots on the ground, just going door to door for restaurants and wineries. And that was essentially a strategy from the very beginning. Going to the streets of San Francisco, knocking on Michelin 3 stars, going into Napa and Healdsburg and going up and down the winery roads and talking to people was how we got our start, right? At that point, we didn't even have our product. We were just iterating across pretty much 3D renders and images of what could have been. And that's how we started to slowly build demand. People saw interest of, oh yeah, that bottle looks cool. I want to try that water. Like that's such an interesting thing. And so as we began to gather positive feedback that looks like there may be a market for this kind of thing was when we actually sort of truly began to iterate across the product itself to bring it to life.
Smart, though. That's a good idea. I mean, I think Elon Musk is very much like that, isn't he? I think a lot of his success is because of the strategy of before he's even developed a product, he's created a list for
Yes.
people to register interest so he can gauge what kind of demand there is before actually any real investment's gone in. And also at the same time, once you've done that, then as soon as you've launched the product, you've actually already got yourself a launch pad of willing customers to
Yes.
launch too. So
Exactly.
that's a good strategy and proven as well, clearly.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough strategy. It costs a lot of time, a lot of gas. But
Yeah,
it definitely begins to produce results, especially when you get into communities. Everybody loves local people. I'm originally from that area, so as you begin to know people and know people who know people, that's how you start to build a market.
nice. And so at the moment, you're focusing on kind of like high end hospitality, right? So wineries, restaurants, anything retail?
Nothing retail. And from the beginning, we never had any ideas to go on the shelves because, quite frankly, something like LeVeto Water is more of an experience, more of a show, if you will, than the water itself, right? I'm not trying to fight the purity war with all these other companies. We have the best this, we have the best TDS, our pH is this, we're the best water for. I'm not trying to fight that because I believe that market is too saturated. LeVeto innovates on this by showing the experience of water. rather than saying we are the best water for X, Y, and Z. And we can't do that through retail because consumers can't realize that on the shelves. They just see a higher price tag compared to the cheaper price tag. And whatever they've heard about the brand, that's how they make their decision. By allowing our product to only be B2B with high-end resorts, think a welcome gift within a casita as you stay in one of these resorts, or even like these high-end VIP wine tasting experiences, you have a person or a venue who's iterating your brand, almost like a brand ambassador, to make sure that the experience that gets delivered to them is exactly what should be delivered. And so that's a lot different than being on the shelves. And shelves, you can't really accomplish that, to be honest.
Interesting. So tell me then, how does it work? Because, referring back to your analogy with the wine, right? So when you do go to a restaurant, yes, there's a million bottles of wine on offer, price ranges, colors, different grapes, different areas, geographic, you name it, right? But they've got a sommelier usually, or someone that knows their shit, to walk them through all the different varieties, what's what, and when you get the whole experience in that way. So how do you kind of get LeVeto Water to stand out on a menu if it's something that's presented as an option? What's your approach with that? And do you train the team there? Like, how do you get the water to have the value, if you like, from
Hmm.
a client's point of view? How do you
Yeah,
pass that message across?
it really depends on where they're looking to place it. Obviously, different restaurants place it, some choose to resell it, some choose to comp it, some choose to almost consider it like a value add on, something like, well, we want to upgrade our curtains, but instead of that, we're going to upgrade our water. So they're all viewed in different ways. And at this point in our, early 3-year business, we haven't really decided what is quote unquote the best. But the times that it has worked the best to iterate this LeVeto concept has been when the water is already set in almost like a centerpiece on the tables when they go in. So think the very exclusive private rooms, private dinings, events, weddings.
Yes.
When a guest goes in and they see, well, what's that? I've never seen something. Starts to become this almost talking point, if you will. And they sit down. They're like, whoa, this is a water bottle. This is a glass double polished water. This is amazing. I've never seen anything like that. They pick it up. They move it around. They see that it pours, and typically we'll have a sommelier or a server come out and serve the water alongside that presentation. So not only do they get the shock factor of, what is this? Like I'm only used to seeing those Italian water glass bottles or maybe like a bottle of Aquapana or Fiji or something on the table, something new, which is then presented with the experience, the pour, if you will, from someone who has been trained by myself, my co-founder.
And tell us more about the bottle then. So how big is the, how many liters is it?
It's
What's the volume?
750, so exactly the same as a wine bottle.
And the bottle itself, is it something that's like kept by the customer? Is it reusable? Like, what's the journey of that bottle?
Yeah, it really depends on what the venue prefers. A lot of the partners that we work with right now care about sustainability, so they want to recycle the glass. And quite honestly, at a volume standpoint, if we're recycling that much glass, it actually begins to collect a profit almost at that point. But a lot of the times, it's just such a unique piece. And if I didn't even tell you it was water, if I told you it was a decanter, you might even pick it up because it just looks so great. And a lot of the guests who get it comped in a restaurant or see it in an event who choose to purchase it, they want to take it home. And I'm not stopping them from taking it home if it's something that they want to enjoy at home.
And how do you get around the fact that there's going to be inevitably, like every time, it's just the way it is in life. People are going to take the bottle and they're going to put any water on it, and they may well then claim it's Levito water. How do you get
Yeah,
around that?
that's a very good point, and we can't really get around that, right? Let's be honest here. That's something I can't knock on everybody's door at their house and say, "What did you put in? What did you put in the water? Did you put in tap? How dare you? Let me, sue for defamation or whatever it may be." All I care about, all the business cares about, is that the guest who experiences LeVeto for the first time, for the second time, in those circumstances, gets the LeVeto experience. If you go home and you fill it up with vodka and you just want to put it on your shelf for your friends to see, that's great. I applaud that because that's not what we're focused on. We're focused on showing that water can be an experience. And if I've shown that to you, everything you do with that bottle, you want to take it apart, that's totally up to you. That's how I like to view it.
Is the branding like engraved on the bottle somehow?
Yes, we have it etched on the bottle directly, so they can't like peel
Right.
off a label, and
Yeah,
put it
yeah,
on something
yeah.
else.
I'm just thinking, like, so many people probably thinking to themselves, okay, well, I'll buy a crate of your water, and then once I've kind of used up all of that, I'll use it two or three more times in between and cut my margin. And it's just the way it works. I've seen this. Unfortunately, the food industry. There's a lot of things that you see that cannot be unseen. And as regulated as things are, there's a lot of shortcuts people do take, and I think it's
I don't
must
doubt
work.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it must worry a little bit, or it's not something you.
I don't think it's something to worry about. If anything, bad rep is still rep. And our water does have a uniqueness to it. I'm not saying we have terrible water. I think our water is actually amazing. And just from the taste profile and the mouthfeel alone, you can tell that it's different from other waters. Now, if they begin to serve, let's say, God forbid, tap water or some well
Mm,
unfiltered water, recycle it into their, restaurant and pour it out during service, I can't stop it, but they'll still see that it's a LeVeto bottle, right? And so I do agree that in some cases it'll probably make things worse, but only in the short run. Because in the long run, hey, like I wouldn't want to partner with a restaurant who does this anyways. And if
of
I
course,
did,
yeah, of
maybe
course.
that's my problem, right? Maybe that's my due diligence that I didn't do. And the restaurants that we are partnering with, we would hope a Michelin 3-star is not recycling the LeVeto water just for the bottle, right?
Yeah, right. Interesting, isn't it? But tell me more about the water itself. So, where is it from, and what makes it special, and the profile, and what's gonna. If I was doing a blind tasting, what would I
Mm,
taste from a
yeah.
Levito glass of water as opposed to anything else?
Yeah, so we have our own private spring here in Northern California, completely isolated, 1,400 feet above sea level. It's just a very, very secluded spring, privately owned, not distributed out on shelves or anywhere like that. So it's a very exclusive water. The water itself has a very unique property in that it doesn't have any PFAS. I'm sure you're familiar with this term, PFAS. We have no chemicals naturally within the spring. A lot of well-known brands right now mix springs. So, for example, even Aquapana, and I'm not here to belittle other people's brands. Aquapana, if you're hearing this, don't sue us, right? They have a lot of different springs mixed into one water, and then they process it at their plant. And at the end of it, there are added additives, added chemicals, even things as basic as magnesium oxide, which essentially just help shelf life extend, are all technically additives. And the water that we have naturally within the spring is just filtered through hundreds and hundreds of years of rock and sediment. And that's how it produces the water, right? It's something that takes tons and tons of time, almost just like, grapes ripening on a vine. And our water has, I believe, at this point, the highest naturally occurring magnesium in the States. And so it gives it a very unique, almost velvety mouthfeel, if you will, as you drink the water. It almost coats your tongue. If you could kind of think about the best way I like to explain it, because this is how we originally began to market it into the wineries, was that if you enjoy you're a red wine guy, white wine guy,
Red
wine
wine,
guy, red
red
wine.
wine. Yeah.
So strong red wines like cabs, right, are very high in tannins. They have a very high acidity to them. And as you drink the red wine, you'll get a little bit of dryness on the tongue, right? You'll get a little bit of salivation. And so, well, in its name, it is an acid, right? It's an acidic thing. And because our water is so high in magnesium, which is a basic element, you actually get a natural palate cleanser. So as you drink the water between sips of wine, you'll feel it coat your tongue and rid the residuals of the wine. And this is how we've positioned it to those, master sommeliers who, when they're doing a flight $1,000 of wine, obviously you don't want the guest getting drunk and not experiencing every single palate profile of each wine. This allows them to experience the entire tasting to a higher potential than they would if they didn't have LeVeto water. And that's what it tastes like.
Nice. Well, that's a good description, actually. I like that. Interesting. You don't distribute in the UK yet. It's America only at the moment.
We don't. Yeah, we're local right now, just up in Northern California. There's some discussion with a couple of my partners for Las Vegas and SoCal, so like Los Angeles or Orange County. But we are relatively new. I like to call it, 2 to 3 year company, relatively new, still growing. But in the future, it's definitely something that I'd love to explore.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's definitely something people don't think about. I mean, I go to restaurants of all kinds, and more often than not, it's just tap water really that is given, and maybe like a filtered water.
Mm,
but it's not often you get a decent water. And I know that, for example, here there's a lot of awareness about the drinking water. I don't know how it is in
mm,
the States, whether you can drink tap water. As in, I don't know if the water is technically drinkable from at least a legal standpoint. But
mm.
here you can drink tap water. It's said that it's safe to drink, but everybody knows that the pipes are very old. There's a lot of contaminants in the water. The quality of water is below what I think people would really like to drink. So, for example, my wife and we buy a bottled water because we find it very difficult actually to get water that is A, from a good source, but B, also that's hydrating, because that's something a lot of people drink water and don't realize that the right water will mean you don't drink as much because you will feel much more hydrated from it.
Mm.
Um, and I don't think people often think about that. People never talk about water, do they? There's never a conversation.
Never. It's always overlooked. Yeah. And you bring up a good point here about hydration, too. Most people nowadays drink RO water, reverse osmosis water. I'm sure you've heard this term. There's a
Yeah,
lot of machines that do it. Some people have
yeah,
it installed within their house. It's great because you can drink it pretty much out your tap. You can reverse osmosis your tap and now have a drinkable, quote unquote, fresh water. But actually, what the reverse osmosis machine does is it strips out every single
mm,
naturally occurring mineral in the water. You're not even really having the real water at this point. And what makes water hydrating is not the water itself, it's the chemical compounds within the water. Nowadays companies are doing like electrolyte packets. I'm sure you've heard of this, where to hydrate or refresh yourself, yeah, like you got to add this stuff in. Well, have you ever been to a naturally occurring spring in the mountains and just taken a big swig of the water?
yeah, of
Quenches your
course.
thirst, right?
Yeah, I
Totally
think so.
different than
Yeah,
what you find on the shelves.
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and I find water such a fascinating subject, and I wish it was. That's what I was asking about retail, because I wish there was. We drink Volvic, right? That's from
Hmm.
from. I don't know if you
Yep.
know Volvic, or you have Volvic in the States, but
I don't think we have it here.
so everybody kind of goes for Evian. Europe seems to have
Yes,
this
the French one.
this
Yep.
this thing with Evian, which to me is like the least hydrating water. I find it terrible. But Volvic, it touches the right spot actually. Now, I really have no idea what the regulation is with the actual ingredients lists, and if it does have additives.
Mm,
And actually, what you just told me has just made me think, shit, I should research a little bit more where Volvic is, because it's also a B Corp water. Do you know B
mm.
Corp? You guys get B
Haven't heard of.
Corp?
No, what's that?
B Corp. Oh, I tell you what, you should look into that for sure, Jeremy. B Corp is it's kind of like a regulatory body, if you like, where you can be part of, and it's sustainability, your kind of carbon footprint, and
Hmm.
your approaches to your business from start to finish, what you do in order to mitigate kind of environments.
Hmm.
It's basically a brand, if you like, that associates a business with positive impact.
I see. Interesting.
But it's we're going to try and go B Corp as well, actually, because we'd be for the seafood company I run, because
Hmm.
we'd be the first seafood company that's part of it.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that sounds good.
But yeah, B Corp is a very small kind of elite, if you like, of people that are within the B Corp. But actually, that's I think would probably suit your brand quite well. Have a look at that. I'll
I'll
send you
look
an
it up.
email.
Yeah.
So, what's the future hold for LeVeto Water? What is it that you've got planned for the next 12, 18 months, and what kind of challenges do you foresee?
Hmm. 12, 18 months. It's pretty soon.
Oh
A
yeah,
year to year and a half. Yeah. I think there have been some pretty fruitful discussions. I'm not going to name drop any locations or anything like that, but to expand to the Vegas or Los Angeles area and notable establishments here, strictly because there are more eyes in those areas, but there's also more of a value on the experience. And so that's where I foresee us taking our product within the next 12 to 18 months.
and what are your biggest challenges? Because I know, having talked now to a lot of brands that do alcohol distribution, and I mean, in the alcohol realm at least, is extremely complicated in the States. There's this kind of three-tier system, I think you call it, where anyway, does that apply to water? Is distribution a problem?
I don't think it'll be as big of a problem as, if I had a vodka company in Washington and I'm trying to distribute it in California, right? We've got so many states. Each state has its own regulations and rules. For water, it's not an alcohol, so I believe there should be less of these. Not saying that it's not a hassle, but we keep our water at a very high standard. We like to keep it cellar temperature all the time, whether that's in our warehouse or at our restaurants or any of our partners. So if we're shipping it, I mean, Just the other day, we were shipping a case down here to Southern California, and I'll just drive it here myself. I want to make sure that it's in the most pristine, perfect condition. And at the quality of water and glass that we have, I don't want to put this in a U-Haul or some third-party logistics company on someone else's pallet for a chance for the glass to be chipped, right? I will just secure it myself. And so long term, we'll probably scale out as we have to, as every business will have to at this point, to providers who really value that quality of service because, you know, getting our glass here is a hassle. Getting our water here is a hassle. And temperature changes are like there's so many things that can go wrong with just shipping to maybe an adjacent city that we're trying to protect and keep the QA as strict as possible during these times. So yes, as we expand in the next 12 to 18 months, we'll still look to do everything physically by hand, a very boots on the ground work, but I think that's just what needs to be done to keep the quality high.
Yeah, nice. I like that. I like the fact that you're sticking to the quality side so much. I think it's often something that, especially as you start to scale, quality often then gets sidelines because in order to keep the integrity of the level of quality that you have, sometimes you do have to make compromises, right? Or at least, a lot of businesses will choose to have to make compromises. Now, how you value that quality will obviously have an impact on how much compromise you do. For the seafood business I run, for example, we've kind of decided not to go to mass market. So like we're not going to supermarkets for that reason because we believe that if you are going to go for the kind of distribution that's going to mean that your actual input into the final product is diminished, then you kind of lose that. I don't want to say control because it's not even about control, but it's you lose the guarantee of the quality. But the minute you start to expand to the point that you're mass producing something, it's harder and harder and harder to keep the integrity of the quality. And it's something that people often, I think, don't think about too much, and they just go for the profit or they go for the sales or the turnover or whatever it may be, and then the quality drops, and then you kind of drop your passion, I guess, for the product.
Yeah, that's funny you bring that up actually, because that's just the exact opposite of what we do. Right? Our glass is hand blown. We have a glass maker that makes it for us. We don't just throw it into 10,000 molds and hope it holds up, ship it across the sea and pray, right? Like that's not what we're about. We want to make sure that each of these has the same quality as the other ones, and that's where we can stand out, right? Like if we have this due diligence and we have this QA, we're able to say that we are one of the best, we are one of the most differentiable waters across the entire world. But if we don't do that, then what are we, who are we to say, right? And so that's where we actually focus on the most because, not to say that any business is not for profit. Well, the business is a business, but we value the people who value the experience, right? It's a very unique thing. And right now it's a very niche thing. I almost feel like I would be the guy who's pitching Wagyu beef, 150 years ago. Well, this is just a better beef, right? Back in the day, no one believed him. That's what it feels like for me, right? And in order to keep that, I need to make sure that the quality stays high, in and out.
Jeremy, I'm curious because you come from a tech background. Now, what technology have you applied to your business?
What technologies have I applied? Anything specific you're looking for?
I don't know. I guess I'm curious because I run a consultancy on the side as well that focuses on AI and automation to kind of optimize various parts of a business, be it lead generation, growth, social media, automation. I mean, workflows and systems. And I mean, you name it, we do it, right? And it has a significant impact on our business because we're able to focus more energy on the quality and the production side of things. And then all the administrative, kind of boring, tedious tasks are automated to the point that we've only got one part-time member of staff dealing with our admin. And I'm curious with you because coming from a tech background, that gives you a good advantage actually in order to scale, how to keep your headcount low. And I'm often curious what other businesses do to try and kind of, yeah, automate with a reduced head.
That's a good question. Right now, a lot of the automations, I just bring a lot of in my tech history, I bring a lot of the tech stack over. So a lot of the software is things like Slack. Like some people haven't even heard of Slack. I think I heard your Slack going off a little bit earlier, right? That's a fantastic tool. You can use Zapier to integrate that with a whole bunch of other CRMs. We use Monday so we can track our emails. We can do marketing blasts directly from it. So yeah, a lot of the processes, I will say, are automated and they should be automated, right? I shouldn't have to click through an Excel 1,000 times to figure out what's going on. But a lot of the work that actually generates the revenue or the sale, for us at least in this sort of market, has to be the in-person work. We have to meet people to build connections, right? And so we can automate the follow-up, we can automate the text back and the calls, but when we're looking to make the connection, I can't really automate my own feet walking and taking me there, right? So we definitely
Yeah.
have a slew of both sides, if you will, and I think it's a very fair balance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, especially when you're dealing with premium, having that kind of human contact is absolutely critical. It's something that the same with us. I don't have any sales reps, and I tend to close pretty much every deal that we get through. But what I do is automate the outreach, for example. That to me has
Yes,
been quite valuable because I don't have the physical time to be boots on the ground. And to be quite honest with you, employing someone to do your sales, it kills your margin because
it kills
for
it.
me to employ someone to do sales, I've got to sell 50% more than I'm selling now just to pay their wages. So it just
Yep,
doesn't make any sense.
yep, yep,
So
yep.
yeah, so there are systems. Anyway, I'm glad you've mentioned those kind of things there because I think to a lot of people that are non-tech savvy, they don't even realize these things exist, right? And they're still doing so many
Absolutely.
things that,
I'm
that
very
extra five
familiar with
minutes
that.
here, that
Yeah.
extra 20 minutes there, that extra bit of time to try and find the right number for the right report. All these kind of things like take an enormous amount of time. And if you are a smaller business and you don't have a huge team, and even if you did have a huge team, all this extra time, it bleeds a lot of money. And I love efficiency. I can't stand leaking money when I've worked so hard to make it. And I think we live at such a great time now that we've got this capacity to be able to automate a lot and kind of make ourselves kind of superhuman in our ability to do much more with less. So I
Absolutely.
think
Yeah.
I think you've got a significant advantage there, Jeremy. Maybe you haven't realized that yet, and maybe you'll realize it more as you grow. But having a bit of tech knowledge is for sure going to help you enormously when you're scaling.
Yeah. I no, I agree. I absolutely agree. I mean, I'm here in California. There's a big tech bubble here. Everybody knows about ChatGPT, but go a few states over eastwards and people haven't even heard of what AI is, you know? It's booming right now, but there's still people who don't know you could talk to a AI chatbot and they can help you figure out how to start a business, right?
Yeah,
Or get
right.
your LLC going. It's fantastic.
Nice. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Jeremy, before we part way in this podcast? I feel like we've covered quite a lot. I'm not too sure what else. Well, I mean, I tell you what. Why don't you tell us a bit more about the brand and where to find you? Maybe let's talk about the brand itself. Where can we find it? Where can any listeners kind of come in and find out about you? What's your plugins?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in Northern California, based around the Bay Area, San Francisco, Napa area, you'll see us around. I don't like to name drop places. I don't like to, do product placement. But if you're into wines, if you're into fine dining, if you're into high-end hotels, resorts, you'll start to see us. If you're interested in finding the product for yourself, for your business, if you're a business owner, if you're just curious about maybe the specs or the technicalities of our water, our website, levetowater.com, reach out there. I'll have my email. There's a contact form. Give us a ring, give us a call, give us a text. We'll get back to you within 24 hours for any kind of questions you have.
Nice. Well, look, Jeremy, I really look forward to going to the States. I'm hopefully due a visit to LA in January at some
Please
point.
do, please do. Yeah,
And I'll hit you up and I'll come and try this water and see what it's all about. I look forward to that.
I can't wait. It'll be excellent.
Well, a huge thank you to you, Jeremy, for joining us today and sharing your journey. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow the London Food Network on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Spotify for more stories from innovators shaping the future of food and drink. Once again, thank you so much to our sponsor, Embrace AI Consultancy, helping businesses in the food sector unlock growth through smart automation and AI-powered systems. Jeremy, it's been a real pleasure. I really appreciate your time, and I really wish you the best of luck with the water, and I can't wait to try it.
Thank you, Sebastian. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.